sorry. Are we good? You're good. Okay, so with no further ado, I'd like to call the October 11th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. And we will first stand and do our civic duty to our flag. And pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our first order of business is I need a resolution approving the minutes of our August meeting. Want to make a motion on that? Okay, second? I'll second. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Thank you. So today we have no old business, so we're going to jump in to application 8 of 2024, 151 Seascape Lane, an area variance for pyramid relief, front yard setback, and accessory off-street parking in a required front yard. And I'm assuming the representative, yeah. Sure, yeah. You just have to tell us who you are too.
Yep, good afternoon. My name is John Armitano. I'm an attorney with File Fritz, representing Erica Wareheim, and we're here on this application. I do have notices of posting. I'd like to submit.
We have the affidavit of posting and mailing for this application.
We also have some booklets. We submitted this previously for the Zoom calls.
I sent this also via PDF.
I'm joined today also by the property owner's husband, Ellie Wareheim, and Chuck Bowman from Land Use, if you have any questions or any other questions, and Rory Fontana from Conrad, who's the architect of the property. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the property. We're here for essentially call the meeting was for certain variances. You have provided you some booklet to help orient you to where the subject property is. Exhibit 1, the site location map. It is a vacant piece of land, 70,000 square feet. It is located in an area that's adjacent to behind glaciers. There are obviously wetlands in the vicinity, and I'll discuss that in a little bit. We also have preserved farmland to the immediate east. Again, if you page through the booklet, exhibit 4 is the subject property, which is actually right now vacant, vegetated. Exhibit 5 is one of the subject, adjoining property 149 Seascape. You understand that this has been recently demolished and is having a new structure built on the property, but it currently is. So this is the subject photograph. Again, you have to the north, north 139 Seascape Lane. Exhibit. Well, the next photograph is the farm field to the east. Is preserved farmland, and to the south is about 155 Seascape Lane. And further to the south is 157 Seascape Lane. When we progress to exhibit 6, this is a survey / site plan. Which shows you the location of the proposed structure, which is a modest structure in consideration of the land area involved. Obviously, that's created some, the wetlands have created some constraints, and that's what we'll be discussing further. The location in this specific area was the subject of several years of applications before the town of Southampton Environmental Conservation Board. And that has resulted in this location being, for lack of a better word, selected for us due to the constraints of the environmental conditions, which is to the south and is predominantly the major aspect of the subject property. You consider the side of the property, and that's pulled out on the survey / site plan. Our coverage is at 2.9%, so roughly 3% of the lot is being covered by a structure. Coming to Exhibit 7, and this was part of our submission when we submitted our zoning board of appeals application. This is the Conservation Board wetland permit that was granted in February 2024. And I won't bore you with the details, but it basically sets forth the reasons why this location was selected. And the main reason for that is the wetlands on the property. So this, for lack of a better word, is the only place you can build a habitable structure on the property. And this was through a progression. I mean, it's through the 7-year process with the Conservation Board. But recently it took 3 years to get to the next stage. What you see today, the location of the sanitary, the driveway. So that is, if you page through Exhibit 7, the last exhibit is the approved conservation wetland permit survey, which is, again, we filed covenants. I'm sure you're familiar with the process, of course. So this is, if you see the stamped approved plan, that again reflects the exact location of the proposed dwelling. And we've already filed covenants with the Suffolk County Health Department, Suffolk County, and we've been through Health Department as well. So this is, we're coming to you as in one of the final phases of a hopefully successful application. But as you can see, this is the location that was approved by the Conservation Board. If you turn to Exhibit 8, there are various elevations which Lori may speak to in more detail, but these are the elevations of the proposed structure, which, as you page through, indicates where the sky plane exceedance is. The function of that really is the form of the setback, and that is what causes the inclusion into the sky plane, but that is required by the location of the subject footprint. And we can speak to in more detail about that from a technical perspective. That's one of the variants that you're obviously seeking. There are several elevations, just so you can be familiar. It was part of our submission, but this is just to help you follow with me as I go through the presentation. And then if you look at Exhibit 9, these were prior structures that were the subject of certain variances granted by this board. In particular, 1.4 Seascape Lane in Sagaponic, which is located very close proximity to the subject property. That was the subject of a variance, a recent variance by this board, filed on July 15, 2024, for the application of Steigicht and Weiss. This was to allow for off-street parking in the front yard, which is one of the variances we're seeking from you today. So this, I think, is emblematic of what has been approved by this board. They'll set a precedent for the granting of variances at the time that we are requesting. I won't take you through the details, but in essence, it is granting for the parking in the front yard. And this property, as you know, has our subject property has a lengthy flag lot. So in terms of parking in the front yard, it will not be visible to anyone through the length of the flag. So if you progress to Exhibit 10, there's 149 Seascape Lane, Sagaponic. It is immediately north of the subject property. And that was the subject of a recent grant in 2023. The applicant did require certain variances from the board due to the issues associated with the property, as well as placing a staircase interior to the property. And we were contacted as a neighbor, and the record should reflect in that application that we supported this application to be built. And we have no issue with their construction, from my understanding. They do not have any issue with ours, but they're not here tonight, unless someone's speaking, but I have not heard of any objection from any neighbors to this date. But again, this was a variance that was granted to the immediate north, which would be the only affected neighbor, if you will, with respect to the location of our proposed structure. And then if you turn to exhibit 11, this is 138 Seascape Lane. It is across the street from the subject property. Again, it was granted several variances. I've included them for various area variances to allow for the structure to be improved and made larger, as well as the location of the sanitary system. So in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, there are at least 3 variances that were granted. Again, with respect to the front yard variance, if you consider, obviously, the front yard variance that we are requesting is basically from the rear of the property. It's not a front facing building. It is set back significantly. In my opinion, front yard setbacks are designed to keep buildings from getting too close to the road. We are obviously set back an extensive amount of land. We are preserving about 95% of the property. There are significant vegetative buffers surrounding our proposed location, which again has been selected by the town of Southampton for this location. In terms of the sky plane, again, the exceedance is to the rear of the property, for lack of a better word, and that sky plane exceedance is facing the farm field, and that farm field has no potential for development. So if you consider the purposes of these types of variances, the impact that they are designed to prevent is not going to be created by this application. Again, as you're well aware of the balancing test, I can get into that at the end of the presentation. I do have Mr. Bowen here if you have any environmental questions, take you through the history. If there are any such questions, or if we have any extra questions, I can bring Glory to discuss that and my presentation, and I'll just respond to questions that you may have, unless you have questions for me right now.
I maybe misunderstood, or this might be a question for the architect. When you said the north side, the elevation, the sky plane from the north side faces the farm field? Wouldn't the north side face the adjacent house lot?
Well, the north is the north would be the residence.
149.
Just, I'm sorry, ma'am, just tell us who you are.
Lori
Okay.
Montana from McDonough and Conroy Architects. So just bear with me a second. So the north side is the side that faces the farm field. From my understanding, that's where we are requesting the pyramid variance.
The farm field is east of this lot, so the north would be a house, I'm just,
I may have misspoken.
You are correct.
Okay.
You are correct. So this is the north side. The north is facing down, is facing up towards the adjacent property.
yeah,
149 Seascape, which that was our client as well.
Mhm.
And he has no objection to the project either.
Mhm.
I could get a letter if it's required from.
no, I just wanted clarification, so I understood how the
I
house was sitting on the lot, yeah.
And the reason why we went with these orientation as far as front, back and rear, because it would require the least amount of variances if we had done it this way versus any other direction, would have increased the number of variances that we needed.
Mhm. Does anybody have some other questions?
Refresh my mind, what was the height for the variance? 2 point something?
There is no height variance.
Well, I mean, the
It's set by
pyramid, I'm
your-
sorry, the
Okay.
pyramid law. Relief. 2 point.
Well, it was a setback of 10 feet and a cubic, 6,896.96 cubic feet of variance on that one.
How far above does the plane go above the pyramid law on the sideline setback?
That is the only place that the,
What is the height variance in elevation? Is it 2 feet, 10 feet? On the pyramid law is the angle,
it's 45 degrees.
I understand that. What is the height from the from the required height to the variance height? You're asking for the variance height of the relief of the pyramid law.
I'm not understanding what you mean by height.
I think I may understand what you're saying.
Oh, are you talking about this?
Yes.
Okay, so if she could go back to, I can't really read it, it's is that something? Or more?
It's, just so it can be on the Zoom, it's exhibit 8. And sheet is A5. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's 32 feet.
Okay, yes,
It's what this map says.
Yes, that's been submitted.
A56.
right,
Thank you.
sorry.
The septic field's behind the house? Is that is that correct? The septic field is north of the house, is that it? And it's, I'm guessing, one of the crazy,
The IA
Yes, it is.
systems,
Of
yes,
course,
the
yeah.
septic field is to the north to be the farthest from the wetland.
and so the entire house, I saw somewhere is, so the house is actually elevated, the garage is under the house?
Correct.
And the FEMA compliant,
Correct.
the freezer.
Breakaway construction.
I guess, so. I'm very familiar with this property because I farm the adjacent land. And or did farm the adjacent land. So I'm very familiar with how wet this property is. And it's obviously, it was a house lot created in the late 60s or so. Right, the ownership has been the same since the subdivision, correct?
Correct.
The late 70s. It's too bad they didn't build the house then.
Seems a lot different.
I guess I have a few technical questions that in some ways maybe don't have a lot to do with our jurisdiction, because it, you know, as you pointed out, some of these variances, for example, the front yard setback it's consistent with the neighborhood, and really the front yard is very far away from anything. The accessory off-street parking, again, similar to other homes on Seascape. The pyramid, again, because the Southampton environmental, I'm guessing Marty Shea's department, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of explaining where the house the only place this house can go. So as I read through, I was just thinking about the amount of clearing and disturbance in the wetlands, which I think you said 90% of the property will actually remain undisturbed.
I'd even say more, we're clearing it, Chuck can speak to these points, but the
I guess my concern is that you said it's a 70,000 square foot property, but that they're going to clear 15,000 square feet, which is more than a great deal more than 90%.
Charles Bowman, Land Use Ecological Services. The property that say is 70+ thousand square feet. There's about 20,000 square feet wetlands on it, for the town of Southampton. There's 36,000 square feet of upland. The problem with this lot is that 36,000 in the wetlands. This happens to be the best part. If you go down to the southern end, there's a little private cul-de-sac and driveways go down. There's a large area of upland down there. But again, it's much closer to the pond, much closer to the residences.
It's really evolved.
Well, yeah.
I'm very familiar with it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know, believe me, I know you are, I
Yeah.
know you're the whole thing, but, yeah, we like to call it wetlands, we get in trouble for calling it swamps or bogs. But, nevertheless, the clearing is really restricted to just the area of the house, which is CI here, you can see on it, there's a limited clearing and ground disturbance. That the driveway, there's restrictions on that.
Mhm.
And then immediately around the house, in the sanitary system, there's a limited clearing of ground disturbance. That's it, that's gonna be clear. So, if you can, 15,000 comes out, if you start counting the driveway.
Okay.
The driveway, most of it's the driveway. And even that, we're required to put in some small retaining walls when you first come in. You know, the lot on to the north, they basically share this driveway that's there now. We had to push ours as close to theirs as possible, us to stay with wetlands. So there is a little retaining wall that will allow us to not impact the wetlands. Once we get past that area, we actually have pretty good setbacks. Certainly not meeting town code wetland setbacks, but we maximize all the setbacks as we could, same with the sanitary system. And
I'm sorry, where's that retaining wall? Is it to the south of the driveway?
as you come into the driveway, it would be just to the south. It's a very short little retaining.
Is it abut the Peconic Land Trust's
Correct.
property?
Okay.
Somebody.
And what that is, the reason for that is
Oh, I see.
to contain the driveway. Without impact.
Again, just like or just a curiosity, would there ever be a situation where you both, like that there'd be a common drive? Not a possibility, you
We
try.
tried that, we tried every which way, and I think John spoke to a number of.
Yeah.
We also contacted land trust, contacted neighbors.
Did the land trust express any interest in picking up this property?
And, again, I think from an ecological standpoint, the house is certainly minimum compared to houses in the area, for sure. It's about the size of their garages, and I think we've done the best we can to really maximize all this effect and preserve the wetlands and preserve, as I said, there's 36,000 square feet of upland as well. So that has value in and of itself, being adjacent to the wetland.
I have a question. On the pyramid law on the east, it looks to be 10 feet off the property line. And the pyramid law to the west, it looks like the house could be shifted to the west approximately, no dimensions on it, but according to the A5, number 8, A56. It looks like it could be 6 or 8 feet. The house is shifted north to the west.
I'll be clear, I can let anybody else speak, but this is the only location that this structure can be placed according to the town of Southampton, and we've recorded covenants. There's no shifting.
What's holding it back from going west?
This is the precise, I want to be clear, I don't mean to, this is the only place Conservation Board would allow this structure. It is the smallest structure according to state code that can be built. We are at the absolute minimum of size of structure. There is no shifting or movement of the structure due to location and the proximity of the wetlands. And this has been kind of rocky, so.
And understand,
So you have-
we've been through this.
You have a
If you
site
shifted
plan
it,
from the board to show that? From the
But it's a yes,
conservation board?
it is part of,
What plan was that this?
yeah,
There's a,
this is the last page of exhibit 7. That is the approved site plan approved on October 13th, 2023. We are, it reflects, it reflects exactly what it is. 6, which is our site plan survey. It's the same plan that was stamped approved by the conservation board as the last page of exhibit 7.
you have to realize that this was balancing, if you started moving it. Some setbacks to wetlands areas. Just like if you reduce the, move it south, you reduce the, so you increase that dimensional, to the north. You'd be decreasing the wetlands, and we went through. Probably 50 iterations of the conservation. To try to balance, that's what it is, it's a balance. You know, the dimensional, is more important than wetlands that aspects, you know. You can't satisfy them all.
I guess from a zoning board perspective, similarly, the farm field, I'm often worried when the farm field gets treated as something that doesn't exist, it's a non-entity. When I know from mainly drainage, it's very much an entity, shade, privet hedge encroachment, like there's a whole laundry list of things that can impact adjacent farmland that people don't think of it as an impact. Going back to the sensitive nature and the environmental concerns on this property and that it's a house lot. And I guess in some ways, please, members of the board, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've, other than that large house on Sand Dune Court, seen a plan so constrained by wetlands all around it. And I know you said at the beginning of your presentation, you've been in permitting for many, many years. I would invite any other questions the board might have. I'd be super hesitant to close this application just because of the sensitive nature of it. I would prefer to keep it open so that these things can be digested. I don't know if anybody has additional questions. I mean, it's just because it's
The only thing I can say to that is, and I'm speaking just from the ecological standpoint and also.
You wanna start in the winter.
Adjacent to, no, actually it wasn't, no. That's a good point, but no. The impacts to the farmland, I can say that, because of the constraints that are contained within that permit, you know, which basically say no herbicides, no pesticides, no clearing. Right, that's in there, and it's covenants in there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little different than some of the other houses or neighbors that are
Right.
there. That I could see the point of adversely affecting,
Right.
you know, the farmland, that's for sure. But the environmental review of this over the years have been, I'd say, probably one of the lengthiest that I've ever done. You know, unless it was a giant commercial project, you know, and I think the town and Marty certainly looked at this very carefully, and you know, this was it, as John was saying, because it maximizes, especially for the sanitary, maximizes the sanitary.
Yeah.
So as John had said, we are kind of locked into this after the review for the town. There's no other impact since we're preserving, like John said, 97% of the lot. I think there's, you know, a lot of the hearings, I mean, just move and fill. With the neighbors who have lawns and the pond, and 10,000 square foot houses saying that they know that she can build it. So, we've been through all of that. And, I think it's only fair that, you're the last stop, unfortunately.
So we understand and respect your perfect, I mean, we wouldn't want to say this is a done deal, I'm not gonna say this is rubber stamp, so I wanna appreciate your role as the board, and I appreciate your sentiments, I just wanna add a couple more things, and it sounds like you're going to continue, unless there are members from the public that wanna be heard on this, but again, in keeping with the fire balancing test, there will be no, this is within the character of the community, it's actually, as we've said, one of the smallest homes in the area, it will be virtually unseen, but what a house to the north, which has issued no concerns to the issue that we will be there, and we supported their application, so I feel like it should cut both ways. Again, the issue with there's no other, I think this is very important, as you're aware, there is no other feasible alternative that can be considered. We are at the smallest size of a house and only place that it can go. There is nothing more feasible. We have exhausted tremendous fees to get to this place. So there is really no other feasible alternative. Again, according to the town code and as part of the conservation board, there will be no loss of runoff anywhere. We're putting in the highest tech sanitary drainage does surround this property. Water will stay where it is, but we at the subject property development will not result in any overland runoff into any portions of the field or to the north, because everything flows south. Again, considering the substantiality, I don't find this to be a substantial request. Again, as you're aware, numerical versus reality are two different things. This is not substantial when you consider the isolated location of this property. And if you consider the request for the setback, again, the setback from the farm field, that setback is consistent with other setbacks in the vicinity. Most of these structures were built at a different time, but there are several structures that have been built recently and granted variances by this board, as you're aware. Again,
So were there any setbacks that are only 10 feet?
there, well, unfortunately, the homes that I've looked at that had the 10-foot setbacks were previously, existed prior to Sagaponic's code, right? The areas to the, if you look at some of the homes at the south end, they are set back very tight to the wetlands as well, but that was during a time when it wasn't considered as important. And again, the fact that there may not be a 10-foot setback is that you're not gonna be setting any type of precedent, if that's what you're concerned about. And the issue of the character of the community, I would say that there are setbacks as well there are some side yard setbacks that have been granted on other properties that approach the 10-foot mark. So I think that all these properties they're oddly shaped. I think that's part of the constraining factors here, is that these are they were chopped out in a different time through a different subdivision. So the locations are kind of shoehorned into places with the only place they can go. And again, concerning the environmental or physical impacts, again, the coverage here, and that's what I was alluding to, we have a 3% coverage. So in terms of the physical impact, it is minimal. The environmental impact is beneficial. This is something that will not have any adverse impact. This is, again, it's type 2 action per seeker, so that kind of reduces the environmental impact of concern. I do understand we have a wetland, but as Chuck had mentioned, the amount of work and to get through the conservation board means this is probably it's very environmentally friendly, in my opinion. And again, as you're aware, of self-created hardship, obviously this is a self-created hardship, but as you're also aware, that should not be weighed to the detriment of the applicants in light of the fact that we are compliant with the other 4 factors. I mean, it's a subject of, my client would like to eventually live here. It's been in his family and his wife for a number of years. It took us a long time to get through the conservation board, and obviously that's because of the location of the well. So that's part of my presentation. I don't know if there's any more questions or.
One more question.
Yes.
What's the first floor square footage again?
That's too
I'm sorry, can I just speak from here? It's 1,300, and the second floor is 1,003, and 1,003 for the second floor. There was a
I just
maximum.
didn't see it written, but I came up with 1,009. So, okay, thank you.
One of the smallest houses in Sagapon.
Yes, I wouldn't say probably about the old one.
Oh, definitely the smallest. Is there anyone else in the?
Chair, if you would allow me as the representative of the owner,
Sure,
I will step in.
yeah.
Just name if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm Helge Wehmeyer. I'm the husband of the person who owns it, my wife. And let me just, if you allow me, give you a little bit of history, because in the end you're dealing with legislation and you're dealing with ordinances, but it's really, in the end, it's about people, it's about the environment, but even the environment is for the people. Yes,
Wow.
or we are for the environment. Well, we need to be together. Well, I read very early on, many years ago, shortly after it was published, Beautiful Swimmers. I don't know whether you read that. Got the Pulitzer Prize. It's about the watermen on the Chesapeake Bay and fishing the blue crab. Beautiful Swimmers is the translation of the Greek name of that blue crab. And that brought right away, that was in an industry which was totally fossilized, chemical industry. But I brought that spirit into this and found likewise CEOs who were of a similar mind. So how did we get to this property? In the late 60s, I'm talking 1960s, not 1860s, no, 1960, in the late 1960s, my wife to be at that time, traveled out here to Bridgehampton, as many young people from Manhattan did. And we got to know the Messbergs, we knew them from New York, and they just bought a house. And they're the ones who donated the property which you described, which is the protected property. They bought another property and donated it. So they introduced, they said, Erica, it's my wife's name, you ought to buy something. And then Fritz Mayer of Boxwood Realty, I tried to find it in the town, I didn't find it any longer, it's all overgrown. And Al Padula was slowly selling all his holdings right next to your farm field. And we bought the first house, very small, modest house, which looked large to us at that time because all the other houses were small and modest. And then I bought later on, when I had some money, I bought the lot before, which is now 141, which then later on I had to sell in order to do something in Europe. And they built something. In the meantime, they tore it down, and you allowed them to tear it down and build something new. And now we're the last lot, which Erica bought, again, because we didn't want to possibly be consolidated, was we bought this in 74. When I drove down Main Street, this is where I bought my gas, my stamps, and my cheddar cheese. And the cheddar cheese was wrapped into little parcels with a loop on top so you could carry it. So, and then coming back, and I see there's still the post office. I don't think they will have a gas station, and perhaps if you're lucky, you have a grocery store. So there's a lot of emotions here involved, and we want to build a house. And Fritz Mayer said, build a house. And you're young, you have a house, why should we build a house? And it could be said, at that time, we could have built any house. You could have bought in a lot of fill, and today we would just say, well, this was pre-ordinance. So it is what it is. But now we're building the most modest house it can be, and I'm fine with it. And we are almost all of the property is left as it always was. And it's undisturbed. And we undertook, several pages of solemn oaths here towards the environmental bodies in Southampton. And we just want to build the most modern house that can be for that. And so I'm really pleading that we're both older than we look as well. So yeah, to look benignly on this application and treat it, as good citizens as we are.
Is there any other question on the board? No one out there? Okay, so as I stated before, I prefer just to keep it open, just sleep on it. But again, unless I'm missing something, I agree, it is a modest house on a really constrained lot. And I'm sure that by going through Southampton's environmental review, you've been asked to, sort of make a lot of special plans to move forward with this. So thank you for that. Thank you for not building something in 1974 that would be really big. Yeah, it's a great spot down there. So I'm going to, what's the language I use? I'm sorry. Adjourn this hearing, adjourn this application until our next meeting in November. I don't know the exact date of that because of the holiday. We don't know it either. But yeah, we'll be the 8th. November 8th. Okay, so November 8th. And thank you. I think we have all the information we need. Thank you for your clear presentation. Oh, I need a motion to adjourn. This. Second? Second. Thank you.
I just want to order, is this an open, so that if you have questions that we can answer, or is this more?
I think it's just, I'm just comfortable sleeping on it,
Okay.
just again, because of the sensitive nature. I honestly think that Southampton town, we spent 6 years, 4 years. So, yeah, and I think, having things like this in front of us is really helpful to go through. To me, it seems like the only thing they could have done was build an A-frame with 1 bedroom to avoid the pyramid problem, and then it wouldn't have been. What is the minimum house size that is allowable in the state of New York? That's an interesting, about
1,500.
15,
We're 1,200 for 1.5 to 2 story. I think it's 950 for 1 story.
Be very small.
yeah, no problem, thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, so moving right along, our next application, which I've lost on a few minutes. Our next order of business is application 9 of 2024, 172 Town Line Road. Similar relief, area variance for pyramid relief, a front yard setback and accessory off-street parking in required front yard. And I'm sure you're here, yeah.
Good afternoon, Richard A. Hammer, my fault, Andy Hammer from Known Hammer in Montauk. I'd like to submit my
Yes,
mailings and affidavits.
posted your mailing.
So I'm, the owner of the property is with me as well. It's Schultz Family Trust, people with representatives. I also have Soleil, who is the architect here, who can answer some much more authoritatively as to some of the dimensional criteria. I actually know this house very well. As a matter of fact, this was a Newberry family, and my son is in adult school or just got out, and my daughter at 3 o'clock, Sarah Newberry works to my adult school. So when we did the closing, she came to my office and I was like, oh my God, it's a new. And she told me this was her mother's house. She grew up in it with her sister. I think the estate split up. They actually had the property to the north, I believe, as well. So the 2 properties that grow together. You can see that there's a portion of it that says a shared easement. That's because they used to share that common driveway between the 2 houses. So this is a house built sometime in the 50s. You can see it's a small lot. It's about 17,000 square feet. It's very long and narrow. And with that unique shape in a R120 zoning district under the Sacaponic Code, a lot of your traditional setbacks don't apply to this thing. It does benefit from your code of relief provisions with respect to the side yard setbacks. That works for the principle. However, the house itself didn't even comply with the reduced setbacks. Our application is more about doing some small changes to the residence. If you look at the difference between the gross floor areas proposed and existing, it's de minimis. I think it's like 60 something square feet off the top of my head. The balance of this is about relief for accessory structures that include a pool and a pool house in the rear yard. And the off-street parking that is basically has, truthfully, I don't even know if this property ever had parking on it because they always park next door. But the only real location that could accommodate the parking is in that front area. I think in the past, maybe in the 80s, that everybody used to park in front along the road frontage, but it never really had a developed parking area on the property itself. So I think Soleil did some really illustrative architectural plans with photos that if you look at, you can see one of the photos has snow on it. I don't know when that's from, but I think it's coming down the pipe right now. But I thought the architectural plans, if you flip through them, are very informative and dispositive in terms of understanding what is there right now. It's currently improved with a 2-story house with an unfinished basement as it's called right now. Most of these improvements are about lifting the house, constructing a foundation that meets code and doing some minor changes to the rest of the residence.
Wait a minute, the only
Yeah.
drawing I have is this one.
Yeah, those photographs aren't part of the record.
Yeah, we don't have any of the pictures.
I believe they were all submitted. Can I submit one copy of these for your, I'm happy to submit 12 if you.
We did.
Yeah, they were
Okay.
submitted.
It just gets abstract for
I
us
don't know.
without a visual,
You know, we just have this.
this is the only part.
Oh, yeah.
The packages, they submitted with the building permit package, maybe?
That's
They were
correct, yes.
submitted in August, so we don't have it as part of the ZBA package. If you do have more, then I would pass them to the board.
You can give them back.
Okay, well, you can, but they're very informative in terms of the house. I don't know how familiar you are with,
Is this the only copy you've got with you right now?
I think I have 2 sets.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring extra sets, we had together then in August, but happy to resubmit those. I'm sorry, my name is Candice Soledad Mendez, I'm the architect from Bellwether Architects. Mendez, M-E-N-D-E-Z.
Yeah, I wanna see if I have them in the PDFs, those two books there.
Yeah, it'd be great.
If we could potentially email.
I'm sure I can, so if I have internet service, I'm sure I can get.
Yeah, we can probably email them and you can use them.
That'd be great.
What email address will you send it to, Rody?
I have them in PDF.
Oh, she has, okay, great.
PDFs, so that's what I was trying to pull up right now.
There you go.
Thank you, great.
Good job, Pat. See, we don't need.
Hey, technology works for the first time.
We're basically leaving the house the way it is. It's really, we're renovating the house, pouring a finished basement and adding a pool and a pool house and parking. And we're taking what is a shed and extending that. That's, I guess, a pyramid thing, but it's already there. We're just extending it, and it's adjacent to the property to the north. It's right on there.
To be
Their
clear,
detached garage is kind of blocking it, so.
I just wanna make sure this time you're able to catch who's speaking.
1 second,
sorry.
Yes, if you're gonna speak, please come up.
There.
I'm Michael Schultz, and I'm the owner, S-C-H-U-L-T.
and then just to be clear, we are not in violation of the pyramid rule. Yeah, we are not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the house
The
itself, I
existing?
think, is.
The
does
existing?
The
violate-
existing and the
yeah.
proposed are
Okay.
not in violation of the pyramid rule.
So
We
you
have
don't
a
need
drawing
a
that
variance
indicates that,
Yeah.
not for pyramid, no.
Okay.
There are two,
Yes.
Okay, so then you're actually only asking for 2 variances.
that is correct.
Okay.
Front yard.
Yes, ma'am.
Setback.
2 side yards,
So the
3 yards,
pyramid-
accessory off-street parking.
Okay, it says on our agenda that there's going to pyramid, unless I'm really misreading things, which I can do. Okay, so correction, we are not
Yes.
seeking any pyramid relief.
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
So it's side yard?
Yeah, it is the parking in the front yard, side yard and rear yard related to the pool and pool house.
Okay.
And rear yard related
And
to
side yard related to the principal for the extension of the covered porch.
The
Yes,
proposed screen porch.
There's a very small addition to the existing structure within the existing setback, I think.
And that's where the modified 3/10, 4/10 comes in.
Exactly, so I think that if you calculated, the house didn't comply with it. Part of this is driven just by the fact that these are no longer in common ownership with the property to the north, so unfortunately, those were not in the same ownership control at this point, so that, the parking development has to be done at some point, because there was no parking on this this property as it stands right now.
Okay, and so in the rear yard, you're saying there's actually already a shed there, and that's what's being converted to the pool house? No.
The shed is existing and remains. They're proposing a new pool house and pool. And the pool and pool house, we're seeking relief on the side yards and rear yard. We're seeking to comply with the primary structure setbacks rather than the setbacks for a secondary, for a accessory structure. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, I think the survey is probably the clearest thing to see the
Yeah.
proposed on it.
Yes.
And the required setbacks for the side yard is 30 feet?
That's
They're
correct.
30,
And the rear is,
30 as well,
okay,
and we're seeking 20.
it's R120.
20 and 16 point, well,
It's actually 21.
it's 21.7, right, that's a Bilko, okay.
Yeah, the building.
I'm sorry, where's, you say there's an existing structure here?
You see the little building,
Little
it's like a
tiny-
little square rectangle that's next to
Yeah, I
the
think
pool.
65, yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's like a reproduction.
just like a garden shed or something.
Yes, exactly right. And that one is in its existing location to remain.
It's funny, we haven't looked at I feel like I haven't looked at one of these properties in a long time. So Kathleen Dahl on the west side of the property, is that actually a flag? Is that where that long sort of buffer strip is?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with.
Is that residential, is my question?
Yes, oh yes, as a matter of fact, I think the most.
Oh, that's better,
Yes.
okay, so this is Kathleen Dahl here, okay, so her driveway is now going to, your pool is closer to her driveway than her actual residence? This pool must have gotten a variance as well, I just don't.
Yes, I
remember.
believe this one
This
is.
pool as well would have gotten a variance, yeah. all these
Yeah, so our
pools
pool is
properties.
going in this.
Approximately there, yeah. Was there discussion, obviously, there wouldn't, if the pool were shifted, if that whole. The yard between you would need less relief if the yard between the house and the pool were not so, it's hard to call this broad, but am I correct in that? But there's a desire, I just wonder what the.
Yes, we left a yard for the convenience of the owner. We do have sanitary separated for the pool and for the pool house, I should say, the pool. And for the house itself, we do have sanitary in that rear yard.
Yeah, so we're upgrading the sanitary system, that kind of has its own setbacks on the health department perspective,
That's
foundation
correct.
walls and.
Okay, so that we don't see the proposed septic,
That is correct, because it was,
and so what you're telling me is that the septic is falling between the proposed pool and the existing house,
that is correct.
which means you can't,
It makes it difficult.
you couldn't minimize that rear yard setback because of the septic.
That's correct.
Um,
And it's a preferable location than having it driven on, on the parking, yeah, I think you
Right.
can do it, but it's not.
oh, for the septic, oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
There's bleaching
I'm
fields.
not gonna argue with where they tell you to put your septic. Wait,
Yeah, it got complicated very quickly.
I would,
you would, well, you like.
I just don't see where the septic is on this plan.
I feel like we kind
My
of
same
need a
question-
plan that shows the
My same
septic.
question would be with Mary Lee is, why don't you move it to the east? alleviate the rear yard setback. But you say the septic is there, but
We have the
you
septic.
don't have a plan that shows that.
I can't recall if septic was
Suffolk
included,
County
it was
Health
by
Department.
DAB.
Yeah, it was done by a separate engineering.
I'm sorry, I thought it said consent.
And also, we don't have the set of plans. That,
Yeah, I
We
think
really
there was
need
some
those.
confusion in the, all this, and then you read that part.
it would help us if, before the meeting.
Understood. The septic was designed by engineers DAE, I believe it was submitted with a permit, but I thought that was intended to be in the ZBA as well, I'm sorry that it is not. Septic in between the house and the pool. There were for various reasons, including the parking, but also, I believe it was wells in the front, it was unable to be in the front yard, because that's where we had originally intended it to go. So we had to move it to the rear, which set our building. Our new pool house and pool back.
You will pass Suffolk County Health Department?
We have passed Suffolk County Health Department, that is correct.
You have a, the next one, packet?
It actually does help. Right, happy to.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, good, thank you.
This is the drawing of the sanitary design.
Is there a number on that page? Is
C1.
That's civil engineer.
Yeah, so this is the septic.
it's on the board?
Oh, found pages. I believe we have dimensions on it.
What's that number say right there?
Before you.
It's gonna be 10 or 20. In the septic. Right, John, 20 feet from the septic line dwelling. Septic tank or septic ring,
It's 10 feet. It's
10 feet.
No,
Even
that's a
for the-
separation of one.
That's the tank.
It's
It's 10 feet from
20-foot separation from ring to septic
Yeah.
Structure.
I think it's 20 feet from the septic
Yeah,
leach field, but 10 from the tank. From the
10 from the
house.
tank, 20 from the leaching field.
So there is leeway of 26 feet or whatever it is.
It says 22.2 between.
But then they also, oh, no, that doesn't make sense, there's separate septic for the,
Yeah,
the
20 feet
poolhouse.
from the pool too.
and then
But it
there's.
says 46, right?
I asked for me
Is
to
that what you
read.
said?
Get your magnifying glass out.
Younger eye.
Yeah, I know.
My eyes are just as bad as yours, trust me.
Okay.
They're really bad for reading.
Sorry.
Out of nowhere.
Didn't want to
We
bring
could
that.
zoom
You
in.
want me to pull up closer here?
Could we zoom in so we could see? Oh,
It's
it says
22.2.
22,
What's it say?
22.2, and that's from the edge of the pool itself, not the concrete, so.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Be a little less.
The
So
concrete
it
is-
really can't be moved. It's 20 feet. It's the Suffolk County requirement. It's hard to read.
Yes, I apologize.
That 1/4 inch scale, it's not there.
So we are very close is what we're trying to say.
Okay. So you're in the hardship.
You had me worried.
You had us.
I couldn't read the number. I'm sorry.
The preference generally is for your septic to be in your front yard, but we
Yeah.
couldn't do it with the well.
Especially with
and
these
the parking.
septics.
We wanted, that's where we wanted it too, but with the, you see the lines coming in from the water well, et cetera.
But it has street water there, correct, on that road? On the
Yes.
road?
We're adding that.
That has street water, so that doesn't hinder you from moving the septic to the front yard. It's just that to be 5 feet from that line, I guess.
There could be other wells in proximity.
Yeah, because the adjacent neighbors, yeah.
There isn't, there are 2 wells that.
Right now, it's just water.
That's why I questioned the health department map on the last application, but if you
Yeah,
had the
it's-
health department, right, go ahead permit for the 172 town line, we could see the.
Yeah, there is the 100-foot arc that
You
you
have
see
that?
there, those are from adjacent wells, that's required, so.
It's not on that one.
distance. Yeah, it's on the plan that is shown there, those sort of 100-foot required setback to that the sanitary can't pierce from a capture zone. So that's what precludes us from going on the front of the doors.
May I
see this?
I see the R.
Yeah,
And then again, in this one here.
What's that dimension?
100 feet.
Okay, thank you. So that's where it has to go.
That's where it has to go.
thank you for.
That answers my question.
Just wish I had the
And it
drawings
can't be
on a larger
moved,
scale.
can't be moved to the east either. All right. That's the end of my question.
And then to be clear, the building did not have a conforming parking to begin with. So we were having to come to variance in any case to request to be able to give parking for the building as required. So we're also requesting it. The building had 4 bedrooms and no parking, and we're asking to put in the adequate parking.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, almost all the houses on this road have front yard parking at this point, if they
Yes.
have parking. If they have parking, it's in the front yard, is that good? And anyone out there has anything to ask questions? Anyone else on the board have questions? I guess. So, again, this seems pretty straightforward. It doesn't seem like you're asking for anything exceptional. The only thing is we actually haven't seen all the drawings. I mean, we're looking at them right now again. So again, with this application would be something that I think this board would like to sleep on. But does anybody, again, I'm not hearing anything.
Just one question from council. You did mention something, maybe I misheard it, about it was this lot was in common ownership of the one to the north at a point.
That's correct.
Okay. And it was I know these are old subdivision lots in the 20s. Was it just transferred in and out of?
I believe it was the same family owned by 2 separate people. And the properties that, but it was always the Newberry family. But I believe this was Sarah Newberry who grew up in this house, and maybe it was her cousins lived to the left. But it was-
Orshevsky was the family name, I think that's her
Yes.
husband's name.
And then they had transferred it into an LLC, the one property, and then this in the owner's name.
Understood. Okay. All I have.
I just want to reiterate, if I may, my goal here was to preserve the house and just to renovate it mostly on the inside. Anything, yes, we're adding a pool. I don't even swim that much. I like to take a dip, and we're adding a pool house, and we're adding the parking, and you can't really see, but right here, you can see it, and I can show you, this was an outdoor shed. But it was, covered, and we're just extending it along this way. But when you see on the other property, it's their detached garage that's right on the property line, so these new neighbors won't even see this, because it's all blocked by.
Yeah, and their garage is like 5 feet from,
Yeah,
no, but that's,
we're not changing what's there.
Yeah.
We're basically, that's already there, we're just extending it that way, we're just picking up the house and pouring, because it's an old cinder block, and making it so that we're, we can have a bedroom down there, which is another reason why we're updating the septic system. So I'm trying to do the right thing, because I actually like the house.
Yeah.
And the brokers, and we're marketing it as a tear down, and we're even interior pictures of it online.
okay. All right, well, if there are no additional comments and questions, this too, I'd like to adjourn until our next meeting in November 8th.
Yes.
What's the
Leaving it
date?
open?
Yes, I mean, unless you guys wanna push me, I prefer to leave it open. Yeah, I like to think about things, again, I don't think there's nothing in here that's leaping out other than the desire to just give it some additional thought and
Can I say something? I understand, well, not that, I guess you're just gonna sleep on it, but I guess it has to wait until the next, I was trying to be respectful to my neighbors.
Get
I'm
going.
trying to get going over the winter and not kind of, which is why I didn't do anything before.
Council, would it be fair to say that we could have a decision for the next, I mean, we can vote on it I mean, again, this is consistent with some of the variances in the neighborhood. He's not tearing down the house and replacing it with a larger structure that's got larger, needing larger variances. I'm assuming that the rear yard that Ms. Dahl, Kathleen Dahl, is aware of the proximity to her property. To a degree, I think she would be probably the only neighbor that might take exception because of noise. Correct?
It's actually blocked by the pool house itself.
Yeah.
The lot coverage is going from 11% to 18.
Which is still within the amount allowed.
Yeah.
Understood.
And
Just saying the pool house buffers the noise from the pool to that rear yard. And hers is a giant house, as are all of those on that size. They're mostly 2 acre zoning.
and to Michael's point, our work, if we could construct in the winter, would be less obstructive than what.
It's not.
That's why I was hoping to do it.
It's not a major project, you know, I mean, this isn't like durations of a year of construction.
Yeah, so I think it's like the legacy of this board to sleep on these things. I really do, but again, I am not the only,
I'm good with it.
you'd like to have a vote
Well,
to approve to essentially grant the variance.
we don't need to continue the.
We don't have to continue the hearing, so you would like to
To
have
next month.
a vote so that council could prepare a decision? And that a decision could be rendered in the next meeting,
I would think.
no matter what, right, it would be,
It's possible, you can do a vote now conditioned upon a written decision.
okay.
You're good?
Yeah, well, look at that. Okay,
A vote
Yeah.
conditioned upon a written decision to be ready the next.
I mean, I would like to see that, I guess my problem is that we haven't actually seen all the architectural drawings, we haven't. I know that we got this, and that's helpful, showing the septic, and these were given to us today. Okay,
You're the boss.
I'm not the boss, I'm not the boss, though luckily I'm not the boss.
Can't we, at this meeting, authorize council to draw up a
Yes.
favorable determination?
Yes, and then we can
And
have this
circulate it to
submitted,
us.
it would be
advance the
wonderful to
next
have
meeting.
all of these documents submitted.
And then you submit the documents and then we vote at the next.
Are you aware?
I'm not a zoning, I do something very different.
So authorize my office to draft up a decision in favor.
In favor,
But-
but
And
just,
circulate it to us in draft.
yeah,
So we have read it before the
I-
next meeting.
I also wanna go back and just make sure, I know it was clarified that we were not seeking a pyramid variance, even though I stated that in the beginning.
That's
That-
That is good,
Yeah, you were told
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
and I'm happy to show you that in the drawings.
Yeah, no, it's clear. It's clear, you'd have to spin that
And you
out.
didn't mention submission, would you like written copies, how many trees am I gonna kill for you?
I think that, no, I think that
Distribution.
it sounds like they're actually already within
Yes.
the village, we just didn't see these we did not have a packet that included these, and it really helps to have, it's very abstract until you begin to see the
Yeah.
visual, even though I think you guys walked us through it just fine.
But I would think it's fine if we get it by email from
Yeah,
the secretary to the committee. then
Yes.
we do.
yes.
So you don't have to give us hard copies.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, we don't need any more paper.
May I ask some of your names, because I don't, this is my first time, so I don't know.
Hopefully your first and
Oh,
only.
Richard Fair, okay. Dawn, I know.
Mary
I assume you're
Foster,
Mary.
yeah.
Yeah, Henry Weisberg. I live on 521, Saginaw.
Great, all right, well, wait, so we're going to
Close.
we're going to close this
Close
hearing.
motion.
Yeah, but I know I need a motion to close this, I'll make that one application.
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Gave the first motion?
I did, thank you. All right, So I don't believe there's any other business or
But
the board
adjourn the
thing.
application as well.
Yes, that's.
Close it.
That was to close the hearing,
And
and then
to,
we do adjourn same to adjourn.
well,
To be
Adjourn for a written decision,
decision.
for vote and written decision?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I can write that.
Because Ellie told me to do the meeting.
You should have, you know,
That was November 8th.
No, I said that in jest, I'm not exactly sure of what day it is.
Friday.
It's the.
November.
Oh, yes, that was a wildcast.
Yeah.
Wildcast, so November 8th, so thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we're gonna adjourn the meeting?
Yes, and so I would look for a motion to adjourn on the meeting. All right. Thank you.
Hey.
Did somebody second it? You did.
Yeah.
We're all in favor. We're all in favor.
I think they're giving us.
I don't want to say this.
Yeah, so Pat will, okay.
It's a lot of people.
That's just through the whole thing.
Okay. Yep.